Day one. This is assuming you can already push around and actually just ride the skateboard in general. As soon as you can do that, you're ready for this video. So let's take this into the skate park and start with day one. So my first recommendation is to try and make sure that you have as much space as you possibly need. Come down to the skate park super early in the morning, like 7, 8 a.m. Even though Leyton Skate Park is now one of the best in the county, there's literally no one here. And it's not even that early. Right now it's 20 to 10. So you can come down at almost any time below midday. There's not going to be a lot of skaters about before midday. And if you have the opportunity to, when the kids are at school, do that, because you'll get the whole skate park pretty much all to yourself throughout the whole day, at least until like 3 p.m. So now that we know when we're going to be at the skate park and how to get a nice open area, now we need to work on how we're going to navigate ourselves around. Obviously at this point, I'm assuming you can already push comfortably and ride the board nicely. Just find a nice big flat ground area and just push around. Get to know the concrete, smoother the better in my opinion. So if you've got a really rough and horrible skate park, that might not be the best one to train at, but if you can, obviously any skate park is going to be good, but if you can, try find one with some smooth ground so that in the worst case scenario that you do fall over, the ground is going to be a lot more forgiving and it will hurt way less if you fall onto smooth concrete. Now that we've pushed around, we know the skate park, we've got a little bit of knowledge of how things are going to go. What I want you to do is find the smallest ramp at the skate park. Now, this can be another deciding factor on which skate park you go to. The ones with the smallest, most beginner-friendly ramps are obviously going to be the better ones for you at this stage. So, for example, we have this ramp here. It's super long, the mellowest thing ever. This is the ultimate training ramp. It's pretty much flat ground on a slight hill, which is what a ramp is, kind of redundant. But anyway, if I can get you over there. To tackle our first ramp, we're gonna have our feet on the board nice and spread apart. Your front foot is gonna be closer towards the nose, but not quite on the front bolts. And your back foot is gonna sit on the tail, and that is how we're gonna control ourselves. So when you hit the ramp, bend your knees and lean forward. You don't need to worry too much about doing it into a ramp like this because it's so mellow. But the steeper the ramp, the more you have to lean into it and go with the flow. When I first started doing ramps, I used to do this thing where I used to like push down it to like give myself a bit more balance just to get used to riding down it. But I don't even know if that helps. That was just me being a stupid kid. So remember, what we're going to do is just bend our knees, lean into it, and roll it out. Once you've done that on your first ramp, if you still feel a bit sketchy, a bit uncomfortable, just do it over and over and over and over again. Just the same thing until you get to a point where this is so easy it's boring. As soon as it becomes so easy it's boring, you've mastered it. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, and now we're gonna go over a way that you can use to get speed without having to actually push. This is called tic-tacking. So we're gonna have our feet similar to when we went down the ramp. The front foot's gonna be about 2/3 of the way up, back foot right on the tail. And using the ball of your foot, you're gonna put a bit of weight on this leg, lift up from this leg, and do something like that. Just lift up, put down, lift up, put down. You don't wanna take too much weight off your front foot and lean too far back so that the tail touches the ground. You literally just wanna lift it up real quick, put it back down. So this is your first step. Lift up, down, lift up, down. Bring this knee upwards, and then put it down again, just like that. Now that you know what you're doing, we're gonna try and add our hips into the equation to give us a bit more of a momentum so we can actually gain some speed. So, same foot position as I just said. Now, we're gonna lift up and go to the left. So, swing like that, and then we're gonna do the same to the right. Like left, right, left, right. So left, right, left, right. This in gain speed, you just need to put a bit of your weight into it as you go. So if you notice, it's mainly in the hips, but the shoulders are what determine what direction you're going to swing it in. But the hips are what give you the speed. So you go whoosh, like as if you're pushing a bit of weight into it each time that you turn. And as you can see, I'm gaining a bit of speed. Completely stood still. Obviously that's the end goal of how it's going to look once you've practiced it for a while, but at first you're going to be going super slow, maybe not even gaining much speed at all, but the more you practice, the more momentum that you're going to get and the better it's going to be over time. So those are your, I would say practice those in like your first 1 to 4 days at the skate park. Just cruise around, have some fun, don't worry too much about learning new stuff. Just get to know the board and just, like I said, have a great time on it, because that's the main thing that's going to carry you to the next level. Now that we're looking a bit later into our first week at the skate park, I'm going to teach you how to do a kick turn. Now this is basically going up the ramp halfway or even less and just turning around and coming back down facing forward. So we can take it to that super mellow ramp that we started at, if I can get holes just over there. So you can practice this at first on the ground to get used to it. And it's basically as simple as, you know, when we lifted up the front, now we're going to do the same thing, but instead of just going like that for the tic-tac, now we're going to try and turn all the way around, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to swing our hips, but our shoulders go first. You can almost just turn your shoulders, face the other way, and then the hips lift up that front foot and bring it round. This one might take a few hours to a day or two to actually get down. It definitely took me a while when I was practicing it when I first started. Even Holly learned it in her first few days of skating. So if she can do it, being the clumsiest girlfriend in the world, you can do it too. Anyway, so remember, shoulders, point them the way you want to go, hips follow, lift up this leg, tiny bit of pressure on this one, and just bring it round like that. Again, when you first start, you might want to keep your eyes on the board just so that you have a bit more confidence, but you can still like lean your shoulders that way, keep your eyes on the board, lift up and turn around. Spend a few days in your first week learning that and getting it down comfortably so that when we want to take it to this tiny little ramp, again, tiny is the key here because it's going to be the safest for you. And it's also probably worth mentioning actually, if you're first starting out, whether you're older, younger or whatever, elbow pads, knee pads and helmet, no one's going to take the piss out of you for it. There's a reason why Tony Hawk wears them for every skate session, and that's because safety is key. So if you feel like you don't want to get hurt and you're worried about that, get yourself some pads, helmet and whatnot. You can find those at escapismskateboards.com, link in the description. So now the goal is to do it on the ramp, right? So we're going to go up. Once we're at the apex of where we want to be on the ramp, meaning at our highest point that we're going up to, about halfway, maybe a bit less if you're feeling a bit scared, then you're going to turn those shoulders so that you're facing the way that you want to come back down, and just repeat the same motion as you did with the standing still kick turn. So something like this, up halfway, turn shoulders, hips follow, boom, you've done your first kick turn. It can be made to look a lot easier than it is, so just practice, practice, practice until you nail it down on the floor and then take it to the ramp. And that is your third trick of the week. So tip number 4 is actually more of a piece of life advice rather than just like actual skateboard tutoring. And that is that you need to set realistic expectations. Nobody comes into skateboarding and within a day can do kick flips, heel flips, whatever. I know that some skaters, when they've been skating for years and years and years, make it look easy, but 9 times out of 10, that is not the case. And 99% of skaters had to fail that trick 1,000 to 10,000 times just to even get it nicely in the first place. And I know it sounds daunting right now. It's not like learning something at school. It's actually seriously fun once you get used to it. Set yourself some realistic goals, like learning how to ollie in the first month, learning how to shove it in the first couple of months, stuff like that, a drop in. Set yourself a goal with going down certain ramps at certain points in your skate journey. Honestly, if you do stuff like that and actually achieve it, it's going to motivate you more and more to keep going. But I'd say the biggest, most important thing is, like I said, just have realistic expectations. So the final tip for week 1, this is a nice low stress one that shouldn't be too scary for you as well. I'm going to teach you how to pump. Now you may have heard the expression pump and thought, what the hell does that even mean? Well, basically, it's how we gain speed in ramps without having to push in between. So if I was to go down this side, I could easily make it back and forth without ever having to push in the middle. That's just going to look awkward. So it's very similar to when we went down that tiny ramp, but this time we're just going to go about up halfway, back, and up halfway in fakie. Fakie is when you ride backwards, in case you didn't know. So what we're going to do is bend your knees up, bend your knees, and as you can see, start slow at first. You can use the knees to gain speed and not just maintain, but actually speed yourself up quite dramatically. So right, it looks easy, yeah? But how do you actually do it? So I'm going to teach you that now. If you go into the ramp facing forward, you kind of bend your knees and push the board up a tiny bit. When you're on the ramp, it's so negligible that it barely feels like you're doing anything, but just a very gentle knee bend and push into the ramp. So you like sort of go with the transition. It can be really awkward at first, by the way, keep that in mind. So you don't get discouraged when you don't get it in the first half an hour. This is something that you're going to be developing over the next couple of years regardless. You'll get it down and then you'll be perfecting it over the next couple of years. Start at the back of the ramp. Obviously you're going to want 2 ramps fairly close to each other so you can actually get a pump back and forth. So you're going to take one push, bend your knees up and bend your knees down. So you kind of put weight on the board as you go up and weight on the board as you go down, just like this. Legs kind of go straight at the top of the ramp, but not fully straight so that you lose balance. So up and down, up and down, down. So then it's all in the knees. But it's one of those things that is really hard to explain until you actually get on the board in the ramp and you start figuring it out. You'll do it a couple times wrong, you'll finally do it right once, you've got, oh crap, I've actually figured it out here. And then you'll just go back and forth perfecting that. So that is one of the most valuable things that you can learn in skateboarding, along with tic-tacking, because it means you can get around the skate park without having to push and look awkward in certain situations. So get that down as soon as you can. All right, well that's it for week number 1. Subscribe for week number 2. I look forward to hearing about your skateboard journey in the comments. Happy shredding, and I'll see you in the next one.